Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to focus on what makes a good training and development program. Okay, so this is just a very good, really just to really set the scene from the chair of the NIHR Doctoral Fellowship previously, who had just given a tip in terms of what makes an application excellent. And I just highlighted a couple of things to just draw to your attention, which you'll really see the theme of today, that it really is about you. It is about your development, but it also is about thinking about the bigger picture as well. So the future. So you as a leader potentially, but also most importantly, the whole point is it is a training program. So really it's about focusing on your weaknesses, I suppose, and in terms of your weaknesses, in terms of what challenges you may have in terms of delivering your research, and really how you can use this training program to work on those weaknesses, or indeed improve on the strengths that you currently have. But really, it's just about demonstrating how you overcome these. And really, when we start to think about where your starting point is. Here I've just put the four main ones really, which I think would be a very good starting point in terms of trying to think about it. So when you are thinking about a training and development plan, you really have to think, first of all, the quality and the relevance. So how relevant it is to, for example, the project that it is that you're trying to focus on. And also really how suitable it is for you as an individual and where you really want to go. And just to note at the beginning, I should have said that when you think about your project, it's not a research grant. So you really, sorry, it's not a research grant about a specific project, but you really need to have a mindset that it is a development and it is a journey. But also in terms of how it will support your career aspirations and how really it will support your development as well. And really, a good point as well is if you just think about your career, really, that's what it really is about. So where you're starting from and where you want to go. So what's happening in between and indeed the bigger picture. So it needs to be tailored to you and your needs as a researcher. Also in terms of really understanding where you're at. So we're talking about a description of the current training that you have in the skills, and demonstrating evidence as well for these things, if indeed you've had training for the specific, for example, the specific research methodology that you want to use for your research, for example. Again, it's demonstrating that, or again, it's also really demonstrating that you need training in that as well. It needs to be the front and center of your fellowship application. So in the guidance, you've got several sections that you need to focus on, but really it's also important to just really pay attention to the training development plan, because they are investing in you as an individual, and they need to understand where you're coming from and where you really want to go. So really just thinking about the career progression and through a range of different skills as a person as you develop. And really, it's about bridging the gap. So what we mean by bridging the gap is there are these four elements from a framework called the Vitae, which I'll show in the next slide. But it's about bridging the gap of where you're coming from. And really, this can be a quadrant of four sections. So the knowledge and the intellectual abilities that you may have, and then the ones that you want to acquire as well. But also when you look at personal effectiveness, for example, how do you then start to think about those things as an individual? But when we also look at the engagement and influence and the impact, so, in your current position, do you perhaps need to think about training in terms of, how you engage with other internal or external collaborations as well, but also in terms of, the influence, the impact, what other individuals are you working with? Do you have the right communication skills for that as well? In terms of the research governance and organization. So again, look at where you are now. Is there a good understanding of how the whole infrastructure works? For example, is there training that's needed in that? So it's really important to just really focus on everything that you need, really, just even in terms of your environment as well, and the training that will support that. So this one really, I just thought maybe you can just take a minute really, and just to try and think about these things, because it really is a reflective process. So where, research does involve many roles. And actually, when you look at the aspect of being a researcher, what, would you say you really find challenging? And it's when you really start to think about these things, you can then really start to identify the areas in which you can try and focus in, perhaps the areas which can move you forward in terms of achieving your goals, your current goals being your training program that they're going to fund you for, or indeed even the future as well. So really what this is, and really it's for your resource to just take time out to then just go and explore even further. But if it's for those that haven't seen this before, but essentially it is a framework which is really useful in just really trying to think about and just really take time in reflecting on these different quadrants of you as an individual. And really it can help you when you're developing that training program. And actually in a way it might be a good starting point. So, you've got this application that you're working through, and then you're trying to identify who you are as an individual, and you can really start to break it down and literally list all those trainings that you need. And you can also then go forth and discuss these trainings with your supervisor and head of departments to then see how well, they are supporting you in these areas. And also, I guess some of these areas, it could be that, not necessarily that the training will be undertaken during the program, but it could be that actually after, you finish this training program, after this, you're probably then better going to be suited, to then kind of embark on further training, depending on the process that you go through. So really, in terms of just giving an example, in terms of what training and development you can undertake, I've just really just tried to categorize them in three main areas, really. So we're talking about the training that's related to your project. And that really is just focusing on the skills and the knowledge to undertake that research. So again, it's recognizing that you're not going to know everything at the point of the application. That is the whole point. That's, you're being funded to go and learn about your project. You're being funded to answer those questions that you're interested in answering. So you're becoming a specialist in your area. But also this is, like research methodologies. It could be that, you need training in research methodologies. So if, for example, you've never done a systematic review where you're trying to find out, what exactly is the problem, and you've never done one, you can propose that you need training in a systematic review. How you analyze data that you're collecting and things like that, all those things fall under that as well. And indeed, not necessarily training, but you can also demonstrate the type of support that you receive from indeed experts that are expert areas in those fields that you're interested in. Then also in terms of training related to you as a future researcher. So again, thinking about the career trajectory. So we talked about, collaborations with other research groups. And this is very much encouraged actually, because it's always a case of actually what you want to do, what you want to look at. Have others actually looked at what you want to do? And if indeed, they've done what you are interested in doing, is there a way in how you can collaborate, perhaps, to then try and do something slightly different, but really homing in on people that have done it before. And really it just demonstrates that, you're able to think outside the box, and, you're able to work with others as well. And then the training that's related to you as a future leader. So, the leadership and management skills, and, these things really do come with time, and it is skills, you can learn as part of the program, but actually it's also really just having the right skills, in terms of how you handle these things is just really, really important. So in terms of also what are your training needs, I mean, yeah, it's one thing, again, just listing everything, but again, it's important that you justify, right? So, in terms of, again, really justifying your research, the training that you need in terms of your research project. So if, for an example, there is some PPI element to it and you've never had training for that, then yes, you've stated that this is part of your program. You need it, and therefore you need the training for it. So you really need to try and demonstrate those things. It's not just a case of listing down everything. And also in terms of thinking about the next research application as well. So, for an example, in this particular case, it could be that maybe, say, for example, your program is probably designing or doing some kind of feasibility study, in which case maybe you want to go ahead and learn how to design a bigger trial. For example, you might be able to demonstrate that actually I do need to also undertake this course during this training program because of what I'll need in the future as well, and also in terms of impact, for an example. So all these things, it's not just training, the training that you need now, but also you can presumably undertake the training that you might potentially need for the future as well, just in terms of your career development. And also, I mean, here I've just put a note, so choose the most appropriate external courses rather than stick to what is offered in your own institution as well. So again, it's just about that collaboration. So Irene touched on this as well in terms of the person side of it. But, again, if you've never been to conferences before, again, if you need training in that, then do list that as well. But also in terms of really just addressing your needs, if it's part of the training, to go to those conferences or networking, then yes, please do go ahead and state that, as well as, visits or time out really, isn't it? For those that are not able to travel or anything like that as well, but at least you're kind of demonstrating that. And also in terms of, again, where is it leading in terms of the research area and what you hope to gain from these collaborations as well. And then again, we've heard a little bit about supervision as well, and just how really, again, it's really important to pick the right supervisor, because so many times we also tend to look at certain applications, and sometimes it can be really clear cut. There's a big difference between, applications that have received the support and applications that really haven't received the support, but also just in terms of how suited the supervisors are to the applicant as well. So it's just, again, really, really important in terms of just choosing the right supervisors or mentors to help you along the way. And also then really just also looking at their history as well, like, what is their successful completion rate? How's the dynamics? What would the relationship be? So it's just really just trying to find a supervisor who is just right and how they will support you and your research as well. In situations where, again, it is advised, so if you don't have the required expertise in the research methods, for example, that you're proposing in your application, then the committee may expect to see some specific training as part of that as well. So really just trying to find some relevant form of training that's suitable, in the form of a suitable supervisor or like a mentor, if that makes sense. If there is no kind of like a physical training program that you can do, but at least you're approaching people who are qualified to do that. Then again, this is again just another example, you could attach as part of your appendices, like a training plan, Gantt chart. So many times the Gantt charts that we see, for example, might be the various tasks that you need to undertake for the like, for example, for your research area, but actually even just demonstrating your training plan in form of a Gantt chart might be a good visual of, the committee, and just really trying to see what's happening here. And this is just an example. The timing is really important because, for an example, you don't really want to undertake a skill before you actually need it, or rather, sorry, do the training after when you actually needed it before. So where I give an example of needing the training, for example, for systematic review, that can be really at the beginning of it, because that's what you really need to do at that point in time. This is an example of a successful doctorate application. So the aim of the research really is to develop a web-based decision aid to support parents of a child with neuroblastoma, which has relapsed, who are making repeated treatment decisions over time. And really what they've done here as an example is they've really listed the type of objectives or aims that they want to focus on. So they want to do a scoping review. They want to do some interviews with parents, to understand what's important in terms of, treatment making decisions. They also want to develop a decision aid, for parents who are making multiple treatment decisions over time. And so then really it's a case of, okay, so again, it could be that if maybe say you want to start from, okay, this is what I want to look at, these are the objectives, then to then try and identify what training do I need to conduct this research? Where are the gaps? So really, in terms of suggested training, for an example, is, they might want to undertake research training. So that might be qualitative data analysis if they've never done it before, or patient decision aid development, e-learning. How do you establish that really? But also just in terms of post fellowship as well. So the feasibility of studies for complex public health interventions as well. If they might want to design a controlled trial, after this. So again, training after that. So how do they then design that controlled trial? And then indeed other training as well to really then come with these things as you develop as a person. So the conferences, or the clinical leadership program, or, the law and ethics in pediatrics, right? Because if they're involving parents, for an example, and children as well, but also just in terms of, dissemination. So if, again, you lack skills in disseminations and things like that, you can also list that training down. And then, knowledge into action and indeed into our clinical practice as well. So really, you do need a good justification for the need and importance of each course, and the skills that would be acquired as a result of completing each course. So again, really thinking about how it would benefit your career trajectory. But again, just again, having a good alignment. So in terms of your research project and then the aims and the objectives as well. The timing of the training, which I mentioned earlier, is just then really important. And again, just having a visual is also really, really good. And then most importantly, of course, consider the costs and training. So include both the free and paid courses as well. These these will be funded for. So it's just really important to be explicit about this information as well. And just really the take home here is just about, putting it together. So, hopefully, the individuals who were not so sure about a training plan is just really putting it together and looking at how this progresses over the years in terms of the award as well. Is there room for flexibility or adaptability? For an example, if the project doesn't go well, but also just include a mix of the formal courses and experience-based learning as well. So it's not just about the technical side of things, but also just you as an individual and how it really benefits you and your development. And then making the most of the training offered by your institution as well. Again, externally, so not just your institution, but externally as well, if your institution is not able to provide the training that you need. And also then just looking more broadly for relevant development opportunities in the wider research environment, that could be nationally or internationally as well. And it's through these collaborations, that you really learn, more in terms of what other people are doing and any gaps that you might be able to identify that you can bring forward into your environment as well. So really then just a message, from the committee members. It really is an important aspect of your application process. And it really is important to just, try and take time to just really think about yourself. We've heard previously, it's about yes, indeed, it's about selling yourself, but also at the same time, it's recognizing, the challenges that you have and really trying to recognize the area that you need to focus on really in terms of your development. So really like a thorough training and development plan is central to your application, and you really need to consider a range of skills you need to gain to progress to the next stage of your academic career. So again, as I said, not just the technical know-how to complete your project, but then just you as a person, so personal development as well. And here, so interestingly, so they want to see evidence that you've assessed the gaps in your skill set. And what are your needs for further developing your abilities? So again, just as a leaving comment, again, there's no, just think about, for example, are you coming in where you kind of already know what you're doing? Or are you coming in from like, actually, I'm ready to absorb, I'm ready to learn. I've got so many gaps that I need to fill in, and how can I demonstrate that? So that then, I can be developed as an individual, and indeed in terms of my research area as well.